Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com, and I wanted to do a little bit more NFL trade deadline stuff today regarding the Kansas City Chiefs. So I just made a video a few days ago talking about the Kadarius Toney trade, which I was really intrigued by. If you haven't watched that video, please go watch it now. But obviously, I think there's still more the Chiefs can do to improve this team before the deadline passes. And I said it in that Kadarius Toney video. I said, I hope the Chiefs aren't done because I would love to see them add some pass rush help. Yes, adding another receiver was nice. I do like Kadarius Toney. He raises the ceiling of the receiver room for sure. However, wide receiver was not a glaring hole for this team. Somewhere on this team where I see a glaring hole still is pass rush. I don't think the Chiefs are getting enough from their defensive line. I don't think they're getting enough from their pass rush. I think the defense is still coming along as a whole, and the pass rush isn't the only issue. The run defense for the Kansas City Chiefs has tailed off a little bit over the last few games. They went from a top run defense in the league through the first few weeks to now 32nd at stopping the run. So the run defense is an issue again. Hopefully some of that is improved by Willie Gay returning and getting back into the lineup, but also the defensive line has been struggling to fill their gaps. I think Derek Nottie in particular is a player that has taken a step back this year. This is also still a very young secondary. They still don't have Trent McDuffie back. So again, my point of emphasis here is that the pass rush isn't the only issue, but I think there are effective ways to make this pass rush better, and I think that's one of the things separating the Chiefs from not being, just a great team that's in that tier of contenders, but from being that team that people point to as a consensus Super Bowl contender. I think the Buffalo Bills are a popular barometer this year for Chiefs fans. How do the Chiefs stack up against the Bills and other top teams, in that regard? But, watching that regular season game in which the Chiefs lost a couple weeks ago, I think one of the biggest discrepancies between the two teams is the Bills have a great pass rush, and Von Miller made the difference in that game. The Chiefs' pass rush, didn't really do anything. The Bills have invested in their defensive line. The Chiefs have invested in it, but it hasn't worked. But that doesn't mean you should stop investing into it. It clearly still needs more. They're not getting enough from the edges right now. Chris Jones is making a case for Defensive Player of the Year this season. But it's not enough because edge rush is so much more valuable than interior rush. And the Chiefs just don't have a great edge rush. Frank Clark and George Karlaftis, that whole thing, it's not working out. And look, it was always unfair to expect George Karlaftis to come in here and get like 6 or 7 sacks and, be what the Chiefs needed at edge for this year. They needed more. They signed Carlos Dunlap, which I also liked. But clearly it's not enough. And then Frank Clark, he's going to be suspended for the next couple games. He's not going to be there. Mike Dana is still nursing a calf injury, and even he isn't this premier pass rusher. He's someone that can come in, play some rotational snaps, set the edge a little bit. Frank Clark has been playing better relative to what he's done in the past, but he's still average at best, and the Chiefs just need a little bit more. And I think the Chiefs are now seeing, because there's been some rumors that the Chiefs are calling around about pass rushers around the league on the trade block. I think the Chiefs are seeing, despite the fact that we traded Tyreek Hill, despite the fact we took a little bit of a different approach this offseason and we got younger and we opted to go with, draft picks and potential over paying for a bunch of stars and trying to get in this arms race in the AFC, we're still right there. We can win a championship this year. We're just missing a couple pieces. We got one in Kadarius Toney. He's someone that we think can help us not only now but in the future. And this defense, I think they're really only a couple pieces away, and one of those pieces is a pass rusher. And I think this Chiefs pass rush, we may be looking at it a little bit differently had Deshaun Wharton not got injured, because I think he was really coming on this year. Well, he's out for the year with a torn ACL. So I really think you got to make a move. Chris Jones is pushing the pocket every other play. He's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for this pass rush. Now, could you imagine if the Chiefs were actually getting some push, some pocket collapsing from the edge on top of that? I mean, I really think this team just needs a pass rusher. And look, even if they have to part with a high pick, I'm okay with that, all right? I'm okay with them parting with a high pick because, you're probably going to use that high pick to address the pass rush need with someone that's younger, maybe from another team, but that's younger. You know, guys we're about to talk about, Brian Burns and Josh Allen. These are guys that are still on their rookie contracts, and if the Chiefs trade for them, you're basically just using your draft pick on them. And when the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill and took a different approach this offseason, they gave themselves flexibility in the future so they could make another move like this. You know, the Chiefs' defensive line, they're getting more pressure this year than they did last year, but they're still not elite by any means, and they still struggle to rack up sacks outside of Chris Jones and outside of defensive back blitzing. You know, like L'Jarius Sneed. I think he's their leading sack guy behind Chris Jones. That's just not good enough. I think if the Chiefs were to bring in a proven guy, someone else to raise the floor of this pass rush a little bit, they could push themselves over the edge. I think the defense could be better. I think the team would be better as a whole. I think you could start to talk about them up there with teams like the Buffalo Bills. I mean, obviously, I still think the Chiefs can compete with the Buffalo Bills. I'm not saying this as if, like, the Chiefs are just this little brother to the Buffalo Bills and that they're behind them talent-wise. I mean, you could argue that the Bills have more talent than the Chiefs, sure. But I'm saying this is the type of move that could push the Chiefs over the edge once again, because like if the Chiefs and Bills play 10 times, I think both teams probably win about 5 of those games. So like they're still pretty evenly matched, but like obviously you see the Bills, they went out this offseason and they got Von Miller. That's the type of signing that swung that game in the Bills' direction, swung that matchup in the Bills' direction, because if you guys remember that 3rd and 6th sack late in the game by Von Miller, that allowed the Bills to get the ball back, score, take the lead, and win that game. You know, they went all in this season. The Chiefs are their hurdle. They made a signing to flip the script in a game versus the Chiefs. And now the Chiefs got to answer back. You know, I could go on and on, but you guys get the point. We're already 7 minutes into the video. You guys already get the point. The Chiefs need more pass rush. They should go get somebody. Well, let's talk about possibilities at that spot. Okay, first there's Brian Burns, who I think is the most popular name out there right now. He's probably the best case scenario, or let me put it this way. He is the best player that is probably available that the Chiefs could get. Brian Burns is a great defensive end. What I like about him the most is he's very quick and he can win with speed, which is something the Chiefs' current defensive ends lack. All of the Chiefs defensive ends right now, they're more so power guys. They win with bull rushes. Karlaftis, we know he likes to win with power. Melvin Ingram brought speed to this pass rush last year. Melvin Ingram was their most athletic defensive end at 32 years old last year, and that was a problem. I still think they lack sufficient athleticism at defensive end. Brian Burns fixes that. The problem with Brian Burns is he's probably going to be really expensive to acquire, and it sounds like the Panthers aren't going to trade him unless it's for this crazy package. And that's why I think it's not going to happen, is the Chiefs just aren't going to offer whatever the heck the Panthers are looking for. It's been reported, I'm not sure how true it is, but it's been reported that the Panthers turned down an offer for 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. We don't know what team offered that, but we do know that the Panthers supposedly turned it down. Brian Burns hasn't been fantastic this year as far as pass rush win rate goes, or as far as production overall, really. And I think that's one reason people are hesitant to trade for him, is because people talk about him as if he's an elite defensive end, because we know the Chiefs are desperate for pass rush. But Brian Burns isn't exactly elite. He could be. He's still young, but obviously when you're giving up so many picks, you want an elite player in return, and the Chiefs have made that mistake before, trading for Frank Clark, who turned into a pumpkin once he got to Kansas City. That said, I do think playing next to a force like Chris Jones could mean, you know, so much more for a player like Brian Burns, because Brian Burns doesn't play next to another elite player there on the Carolina defensive line. They have some solid pieces, Derek Brown being another one, but, you know, Chris Jones has been missing that pass rush partner for several years now. He hasn't had anything like that since Dee Ford and Justin Houston. Bringing in Brian Burns, that could be a move that not only helps out Chris Jones, but is good for Brian Burns since he gets to play next to Chris Jones now. And Brian Burns is a talented enough pass rusher that, you know, offense has got to worry about him. I think Brian Burns is pretty unlikely, but I did feel the need to address him since I know he's been linked to the Chiefs a lot. And I do think the Chiefs have definitely checked in on Brian Burns. I think the Panthers are probably asking for too much, though. Then there's Josh Allen, the defensive end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. His name has been reportedly brought up in trade discussions. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN says the Kansas City Chiefs have checked in on Josh Allen's availability. Apparently, Josh Allen is a player that the Chiefs have kept their eyes on for a long time. And if you guys didn't already know, Joe Cullen, the current Chiefs defensive line coach, he was in Jacksonville before coming to Kansas City, and he coached Josh Allen there. So there is some relation, there is some familiarity. I'll be honest, though, I don't really know the rationale behind the Jaguars potentially trading Josh Allen. Doug Peterson seems to be getting those guys up to play. They're a team on the rise. Josh Allen's young. It's not like he doesn't fit the timeline of the team. Maybe it's just one of those scenarios, though, where they feel like they could sell high on him, and he is coming up on an extension here pretty soon. So I don't know. I don't know why he would be available, but if he is, I would definitely love to see the Chiefs go after him. I don't think he would require a first-round pick either. I think you could get away offering a second, maybe a fourth-round pick, something like that. And even if he does require a first, look, I think I'm willing to deal with that because Josh Allen is a great player, and he's the type of player that I think this Chiefs defensive line needs. Your defensive line would be complete if you had a player like Josh Allen, because then your pass rush for the next few years, George Karlaftis, hopefully he improves, and then you got Josh Allen and Chris Jones. It's a pretty solid group. I would love that for this team. Even if those guys aren't available, though, I think there's moves out there that the Chiefs can make. Another one that not a lot of people are talking about, Cam Jordan from the Saints. The Saints are 2-5. They're not going anywhere. Cam Jordan is an aging player. Maybe the Chiefs could try and nab him. He's someone that could come over here and chase a ring. I would really like that one. Montez Sweat with Washington. I'm not sure where Washington is at with him, but that's another one I would look into. There's other options out there. I mean, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they're a team that's all in this year. They wanted to improve their defensive line even more. They acquired Robert Quinn for a fourth-round pick. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, Robert Quinn wasn't doing that well this year. His numbers were down from last year. That's true, but it was a great deal for the Eagles because they're only giving up a fourth-round pick, and they forced the Bears to still eat most of his salary for this year, so they're not paying him a bunch of money. And Robert Quinn is still a guy that draws double teams, draws away attention. He's someone you have to worry about. He's still a threat on the edge, and that's the type of player that I would want playing next to Chris Jones. Even if the Chiefs don't make a move for one of the guys that I mentioned, I still think it's very possible they at least make a smaller move for a guy that, we're not thinking of right now. Another one that a lot of people aren't talking about that I would really like, my editor over at Arrowhead Addict, Matt Connor, he brought this up. Jerry Hughes from the Texans. The Texans aren't going anywhere. Jerry Hughes is on like a one-year deal. He's an older player. Maybe throw them like a 6th or 7th round pick and see if you can get him. Jerry Hughes can definitely still contribute. He's a guy that can get after it. He still continues to be one of the elite players in this league at pass rush win rate. So he can beat a block, get to the quarterback quickly, push the pocket. I would definitely love a guy like Jerry Hughes. So, there's options out there. It sounds like the Chiefs are being aggressive. They're making calls right now. Brett Veach sees potential with this team, even though they extended their window by getting younger this year. I think he sees that they still are good enough to win a Super Bowl right now. And there's moves you can make here and there to make that happen, to ensure that happens. So I'm interested to see what happens. I would love to see the Chiefs add to this pass rush, though. That's what I wanted to make this video about, but I would love to hear from you guys. What do you think? Do you think the Chiefs add a pass rusher at the deadline? If so, who would you like to see, or who do you think it would be? Let me know in the comments. But all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And I will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!